fortune hunters spend years searching for unimaginable treasures lost at the bottom of our oceans. And the stakes are high. Yet 3 centuries ago, they were a lot higher. Battles were fought and much blood was spilt when fortune hunters of a very different kind risked everything for the very same treasure. In 1492, Christopher Columbus quite literally put the Americas on the map. This milestone in history also sparked over 250 years of perilous treasure hunting and brutal competition with the English, the French, the Spanish, the Dutch, and the Portuguese all vying for gold, silver, and other riches. Galleons were sunk, thousands were killed, and up until the mid-1700s, it was the pirates who ruled the waves. I set out to follow the routes the galleons took and the pirates who sought them out. We look at the treasure at stake and what still remains here from that extraordinary era. The New World included parts of North and South America and the Caribbean. These lands were originally home to great civilizations, including the Arawak, Aztec, Maya, and the Incas. Some of these indigenous cultures had existed for thousands of years before the arrival of the Spanish, and their kingdoms were rich in gold. My journey starts in Panama and Colombia. Then I cross to the islands of Jamaica and the Bahamas, ending up in the Florida Keys. Along with gold, silver, and gems, the Spanish found beautiful textiles, coca, and spices in what is now Peru, Colombia, Mexico, and other parts of Central and South America. And once the initial "we've hit the jackpot" euphoria subsided, they were left with the sobering task of somehow getting it all home. Not only was transport across land and sea a major challenge, but once other European nations heard what was happening here in the New World, they too wanted a piece of the action. The Museo del Oro in Bogota, the capital of Colombia, is probably the most important gold museum in the world. When the Spanish arrived early in the 16th century, it is easy to see what all the fuss was about. Here they have 34,000 gold artifacts dating back to 500 BC, made by the original people of Colombia. To them, gold symbolizes the vibrant energy of the sun. Sadly, the conquistadors, in order to get their hands on it, all but wiped out the indigenous people. This tiny sculpture depicts the famous legend of El Dorado, where in the early 16th century, a cacique, or tribal chief, once ruled the Andes region of what is now Colombia. This is a replica, but the myth goes that in a ceremony to the gods, he covered himself from head to toe in gold dust and dived into the pure mountain waters of Lake Guatavita, where in 1537 the Spanish first found the Muisca people and their gold.
Gold sprang from the rivers and streams, from the ground on which we walked, and to Mother Earth it was always returned, to keep it bright like the sun and protect us against the evil spirits. One day, the spirits grew strong and sent warriors to destroy our people. Great beasts, half man, half horse, came from giant ships on the water. Some said they were the gods themselves who were angry to our people. We learned the truth too late. These strangers from a distant land, carrying fire and hunger for blood, they killed our people and took away our gold.
All the treasures that the Spanish collected along the Pacific coast, including serious amounts of gold and silver from Peru, were brought here to Panama City. In the 1520s, the Spanish began construction of the famous Camino Real, or King's Highway. It was a mule trail that stretched all the way from here through the jungle to the port of Portobello on the Caribbean Sea. And this is where it begins. This is the King's Bridge, and it sits on what is now called Panama La Vieja, or Old Panama City. Obviously, the neighborhood has changed a bit, but this road, the path through the jungle, still exists, and it served the Spanish well for 3 centuries. From Panama City, the Camino Real stretched 50 miles across the isthmus to Nombre de Dios. When the port was ransacked by Sir Francis Drake in 1572, the trail was extended to Portobello. I am about halfway between Panama City and Portobello in the Chagres National Park. And this is a great example of what remains of the original road. The Spanish basically spared no expense. They had to bushwhack through this really dense, thick rainforest. Then they paved a road, and they made it wide enough, not just for 1 mule cart, but for 2, so that one could bring in provisions while the other left with their treasures. Boy, they were really dedicated to that loot. But the Spanish shipped over hundreds of African slaves to build the trail for them. Some slaves escaped, but most were then used to drive the mule trains as well. Ooh, not a good place to slip. There's a snake. Right. Yeah, that's just one of the many things that they would have encountered here. They've got vipers, which is what I think that is, bushmasters, coral snakes, poisonous frogs, jaguars, not to mention diseases like malaria and yellow fever. This was an incredible hazard. You were lucky to get out alive. Once built, it would usually take the Spanish 10 to 14 days to reach Portobello. That is, if they didn't run into any other problems, which of course they did. One big challenge for the Spanish was to protect the mule trains from pirate attack. About 4 miles north of Portobello is the spot where one mule train was ambushed in 1573. I was taken there by pirate aficionado René Gomez.
They were heavily fortified. There were like 200 Spaniards up in the front, like 100 on the back. So imagine nobody on his right mind would try to attack a mule train with so heavily fortified.
Exactly. You'd have to be either completely crazy or incredibly confident.
Sir Francis Drake, he's the one that had the audacity to attack. But he didn't do it by himself. He recruited the help of the Cimarrones.
Who are the Cimarrones?
Cimarrones were these slaves that had escaped. They lived up in the hills.
So they would have wanted a little revenge, right?
Exactly.
Against the Spanish.
Yes, so.
All right, so what happened in this place?
Sir Francis Drake's logbook says specifically that they attacked the mule train right at the joint of Juan Miguel Creek, which is this one right here, where it meets the Nombre de Dios River. That's where it happens.
Okay, and so, it was near...
And this flat terrain, they had to have a flat terrain because they had to have all the 90 mules be able to be seen, the one on the front and the one in the back. Let me show you the terrain back there.
That Drake knew how to ambush, right?
Drake ambushed the mule train right here on these plains.
He managed to take by surprise 300 Spanish soldiers.
Yes, and the slaves